Greetings, everyone. It is I, DB Spitzer. Once again, I'm having a conversation with Andrew Migliore. Andrew, I hope I got that right. I'm awful with last names. Anyway, Andrew still has a Kickstarter that's in the show notes that you should check out. Clark Ashton Smith adaptation. You should check it out. Link in the show notes. This time, we sit around and he wanted to talk about gaming stuff, and Andrew's got a lot of really fun gaming stories since he gets to spend some time with a lot of cool gamer types, game designers like who we've had in the show in the past, like Adam Scott Glancy and Ken Hite. So, here we go. We recorded a little bit at first, and then I accidentally hit the button or something and it stopped recording, so we started over again, and the beginning's a little hurried, but we get back into the rhythm of things, and this echoes crazy. Alright, let's go. Me and Andrew. I also served Andrew some black lager Schwarzbier that I made, and prepared some really awesome bratwurst and sauerkraut that I made, because I love bratwurst and sauerkraut and black lager. And so does Andrew. So, I was able to bribe him into coming down to the dungeon and recording a bit. So here we go. And remember to check the show notes and kick in some money to get a really, really cool short film based off of a Clark Ashton Smith story made. So we can all see it. Maybe you can get a cool poster. Get a digital copy. There's a lot of cool goals, and I highly recommend everyone kick something in if you think Clark Ashton Smith is as awesome as I do. Okay, no more false starts. Here we go right now. Hey, Andrew. Welcome to the studio.
Hey, Danno, how you doing?
Doing good. So I hear you're gonna tell us some stuff about some role-playing games you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, basically kind of finish up the conversation we had after the last interview that we had over some beers.
Sure.
Talking about kind of the influences, some of the early games, and the evolution of gaming that led to Lovecraft and Call of Cthulhu, etc. All paths lead to Lovecraft. And I thought I would just talk about some of my experiences and hopefully drink some more of your delicious Schwarzbier along the way.
Yeah. You got the last of it.
I know. But we have some Rainier.
We got some Rainier in the fridge cooling down, so that's a free plug for Rainier. You owe me a case, Rainier.
That's right. Exactly. So, there's many games. I mean, I started in probably the early 70s because my brother playing Avalon Hill war games, starting, some of the early ones. But really, the first game that really captured my imagination in a way that these other games didn't was like D&D, and I think that's probably true for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
But if I was to write a book, I would probably have the first chapter would be entitled "The Problem with D&D."
Yeah.
And you might ask, why?
What is the problem with D&D, Andrew?
I'm so glad you asked me that question. The problem that I had, and the reason why I eventually went to Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green, is it's really the early days. It was a game, really, it was superheroes, right? Like you ended up being maxed out with, these amazing weapons and things, and you'd be, basically invincible. And so it was kind of fun, at level 2 to level, say, 4, where you're struggling to survive, and you're barely making, the simplest creatures were a challenge. And so, but later on, people would start getting all these crazy items. And when well, first of all, I hated when people came aboard and says, I have a paladin. I've got a pre-rolled paladin who's been on a few adventures, and he's got plus 20 strength, ogre, mittens of invincibility, and he's got plate mail of doom. That's like plus 100. And after a while you go, all right, dude, just just makes you pissed off, right? I was an angry young man, perhaps. But Anyway, so that's kind of the problem. It's like really a game for superheroes. Like this
Sure.
overpowered. And so when I was a dungeon master, I would try to rectify this in a way that did not make me popular amongst our gaming groups, because I do things like, okay, well, to go on your adventure, you need to rent a boat and get across, ferry across this river. And so, all right, once they got into the boat, I'm like, haha. And I'd make things happen, like the boat would capsize or whatever, a raft would start sinking. And then there you have that jerk of a paladin and his, plus 100 plate mail of doom. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And he would sink to the bottom. I said, well, what are you going to do? I want this. I go, you can't make it to the surface. Not with that heavy, wonderful, mittens of invincibility and all this stuff. So he'd end up having to shed off the stuff. It would sink to the bottom. He'd surface, and they'd end up having back to more basics. Sure, they get maybe some food and basic weapons. And then it's like, all right, now it's real. And let's get rid of the bullshit and talk about the story, because that was what was more interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have examples like that.
Oh no! I mean, I had killer DMs who would just like give us cool stuff and then take it away, and just I'm not sure to be dicks or what, but yeah, no. I've always like been far more interested in like the story and the camaraderie and the adventure than. Like, I've got plus 12 shoes of elven walking of water.
Yeah. Exactly.
Man, I got to create that magic item.
It's fun. I played a game recently. My good friend Mars down in Sacramento, he introduced me to Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Oh.
And you know what? It was so refreshing because it's back to the heart of what you're doing.
Nice.
And if you do magic at all, it's got some really nasty side effects. So yes, you can try to cast these powerful spells, but there's ramifications. There's effects, like your hand turns into a hoof, or your foot turns into a duck-webbed foot. Whatever. Okay. You have corruption the more you do these big spells, and so you got to think about, like, do I really want to do this? But that kind of brought balance into the game, and so I really kind of enjoyed that. Again, it's fixing that problem of things being way overpowered. And of course, Call of Cthulhu takes that away because you go insane, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. But there's a game that people probably don't know about that was also by Chaosium.
Yeah.
Stormbringer.
Okay.
Have you heard of Michael Moorcock's Elric series?
Just a little bit earlier today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I told you about it. Yeah. And that's, Michael Moorcock, interesting fellow. He also helped out with the band. Why am I blanking on this? Hawkwind.
Hawkwind.
Yeah, and so he was involved in the band, is involved in the band. And what was cool about that game is I really liked the premise of it, and maybe it's better when you're a juvenile, reading that stuff. I don't know if it has the lasting power. One time, my wife and I, Linda, we were doing a thing where we'd read books to each other out loud, as like we take turns, and so I'd read Lovecraft, and I'll get back to Stormbringer in just a second.
Sure.
But we read Lovecraft, like The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, where the parents are going, I hear these strange noises in his room. Do you think we should do anything? And Linda's going, fuck yeah, I would go in there right now. Look, there's something bad going on. You're a parent. You go up there and you tell them what for. And of course, in Lovecraft's story, like, they're just very meek, and then Dr. Willett comes in, who acts like is the nosy doctor, who's kind of like the private investigator aspect of the story. So similarly, we read the Elric Stormbringer series of books out loud, and she'd go, Elric, what a freaking whiner. What a whiner. This guy just, woe is me, I'm the eternal champion. So if you don't know the series of stories, it's kind of like this multiverse where Elric is doomed to help save the universe, the world, or whatever, and he'd have different incarnations of himself, and he'd meet them, and every time he'd meet them, it would just, freak him out. And so, but he was this whiny guy. He's like, because he was doomed to do this, and he, people don't like, where there's choice, there's misery.
Yeah.
But where there's no choice, there's misery too, I guess. I don't know. Both. Does he do anything? Okay. So he had a sidekick too named Moonglum. Now, Moonglum was this optimistic fatalist. I don't know how to say it. So he's like, yes, we're doomed, but let's go forward and fight chaos and do things like that. So anyway, Chaosium decided to do a role-playing game. I think it was 1981-ish time period, maybe 82, 81. And they re-released it in 85, I think. So my friends and I decided to play that because, boy, D&D, tired of that. Let's do something else. So we played, Stormbringer. And the problem with Stormbringer in that universe, like the Melobonians, were all these like albino. Elric is this albino necromancer type of character, and everything in that land is poisonous to anyone else. Like everything. You look at the blades of grass, you die. Everything. So. Of course, my friend who was doing the game mastering of the game, he would, all right, so you walk into an inn and that's serving Melobonian food and wine. What do? All right, we order wine. Did you drink it? Yes, we drank the wine, but it's Melobonian wine. Yes, we drank the Melobonian wine. You're all dead. So that was the other extreme where like, oh gosh, we didn't even survive like the introduction.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit the other extreme. But another little example of that was like, I'm like, I can read these. We're trying to stop some demon crap going on. And so I read these runes and I know how to enter the portal to get to where they are. And I'm like, oh, that's easy. And I do whatever I have to do. I read it and I go in and then I realized, you have that aha, Shaggy and Scooby moment, and you go, like, oh, I know how to read that shit, but my fellow players don't.
Yeah.
And so they're on the other side, and then all they hear is horrible, horrible screams as I get shredded by the demon because I have no support, and that's how that ended. So it's a natural progression, right?
Sure,
so you go from these superhero invincible things to like, oh, this is way impossible. Then you do something that's in between. Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you're familiar with that stuff.
Very, very much so. I'm used to playing flimsy dilettantes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think like the folks up at Pagan Publishing and Scott Glancy and all them fixed with Delta Green, like the whole idea, like you have to be a dilettante to be able to fund the adventure. Otherwise, like, how are we going to buy the dynamite?
Yeah.
And of course, it's classic. I've got plenty of stories along these lines, too. We'll talk in a second about it. But, like, Call of Cthulhu, I mean, I was enamored by the fact that how frail your characters were.
Yeah.
That sanity, like, the more you learn, it's not a good thing. But it balances out very much, I think, like what Dungeon Crawl Classics does with magic. Like, there's side effects. It's bad. Yes, you can do that stuff, but you got to balance it out. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Call of Cthulhu. Like the more you learn those spells that you cast, they're not good. They're not healthy. They're bad. So it's kind of fun doing that kind of stuff. And that brings me to another kind of story. There's a gross part and a not gross part.
Okay.
So which do you want me to go first?
You can go with both parts. I mean, go for it. I think I know what story you're gonna tell.
Okay. All right. So I think they've re-released it recently to the Mask of Nyarlathotep, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when that came out, I think it was, not quite sure, 85, 87 time period. I can't quite remember. I say, mid to late 80s. When it first came out, was amazing because, we know that the Lovecraft Historical Society has these great props and stuff, but that was like the first of that kind of stuff that had cool little props. It had like a little matchbook and things like that. So it gave and little telegrams and all this stuff. So it lended this, the gameplay was so much more enjoyable because you had these extra items that you could hand out. And it was a pretty cool thing. It was multi-segments. And the first one's in New York. And, you basically have to, I'm not going to ruin the story for anyone who doesn't play, but basically you're finding this cult. So my friends, of course, having played enough Call of Cthulhu, were, you got to play this with a balance, right? You got to like, do they really know what everything is? Because you're super paranoid, right? Like, I'm not, all right, do you go down the basement? Okay, we go to the basement. Now you hear chanting on this other side of the door. Do you open the door? Hell no. What do I see? All right, well, you see a bunch of clothes. It looks like they've taken all their clothes off and they're probably doing some type of naked ritual just on the other side of the door. Do you want to open the door? No. Instead, we take all the clothes and we put them up against the door, and I have some kerosene with me, and we pour the kerosene over all the clothes, and we're going to light it on fire. Are you sure you don't want to open the door and see what's going on? No. So, of course, the next day, 3 city blocks burned down, and they don't know anything. They haven't progressed. But that is one way to handle things, As one friend said, yes, dynamite and matches are, your man's best friend.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to look for clues later, but...
I know. Well, then it's like, all right, now I have to figure out, like, well, now they don't know this and this. Like, how do I reintroduce that?
How do I get them to the bookstore? How do I get them to the airfield? How do I... Yeah.
Exactly. And so... But that was kind of a fun thing. But the story that led to that gaming event was... and this is a true story, but it's very Lovecraftian. So... is when that got released, we went to our local. I was in College Station, Texas at the time, going to college there, and at Texas A&M University, and we'd go to Starships and Dragons. That was our gaming store in the region. I mean, really, like for hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
That was the only game store. So we went in there looking for the new things, the new releases from Chaosium, and they had the box set for Masks. And my friend and I, Mike Fitch, we walked into the store, and behind the counter, the game store owner was, and this is, it's just so funny because he was wearing a shirt that I hadn't seen since the 70s, like "Keep on Trucking," but I think it said "Keep on Tolkien." Or was it toking, like marijuana? I don't know. I can't remember now. It's kind of vague, but it was, this kind of tan, greasy shirt. He had long hair that was kind of black and greasy, and he had these round, those glasses like Radar and MASH would wear, the round, but they were kind of thick, and they looked kind of greasy. It was like this. He looked like, did he look like Crumb? A little bit like Crumb, but long hair, long greasy hair, and he's just sitting behind the cash register, and so I immediately peel to my left. And I go to the games that are up there for Chaosium, and I'm looking for, and I go, ooh, Masks. And I'm reading about it. I eventually did get it, not on that trip, but later. And there's a cat. There's this large calico type cat. It was sitting plopped in the center. It looked naturally overfed, large, and my friend went to pet it. And I got my back turned, so I have my back turned to this situation. And then I hear the most horrific gurgling sound. And I it's that horrible thing where you start, like, I'm going to look over my shoulder and see what's going on. I slowly doing this, realizing, like, I probably shouldn't. But I'm turning around. As I turn around, I see my friend is on his all fours, scrambling backwards, like in a crab crawl, I think is what they call it, crawling backwards, away from I'll just say cat, quote unquote cat. It had, and I don't know from how many orifices, but it had emitted a pile of worms.
Oh.
Yes, and it was like, oh my God. So the horror, like, this is like, it's not like, almost frozen in time. Time has slowed down, and turning over. And finally, behind the counter comes the game store owner, and he goes to the cat, and he crouches down to the cat, and he starts pointing at the pile of worms. And he turns and he looks at us, and he goes, they're still moving. Well, sir, let me tell you that with that, I was like, fuck, I'm out of here. And like grabbing Mike, my friend, and we're like, oh my God, let's get out of here. Oh my God, this is, And so we run out of the store, we get in his car, and we're trying to start the car up. And then we both pause. It's like, it was so cinematic, like we both pause, and we look at each other, and then we screamed. And you know why, though, right?
Why?
Because he had pet the cat, right? So the only proper thing to do in this situation, being situationally aware, is like, well, either we chop his hands off or we kill him, right? And burn, because we don't want the contagion to spread. That's the only logical conclusion, right? Right? That's what you would have come to, right?
Sure.
I bet if you asked Scott, he'd say the same thing. So, yeah, that was Masks always has this kind of love-hate relationship. It's like my friends were too paranoid, except my friend who was the anarchist. Okay,
Yeah.
He goes, I go, you hear screaming behind the door. Okay, I go, what are you gonna do? You gonna do something? I'm thinking about it. Why don't you kick the door down? Well, that would break the law. I go, you're an anarchist, right? Okay, it was hilarious, I know. So anyway, like no one, the problem with playing too much Call of Cthulhu is no one wants to face, like, we're terrified, and you kind of, so you have that problem, with that kind of gaming. I'm sure you've had those moments, right? Those cinematic, cinematic gaming moments. Another one with Call of Cthulhu, I remember, we had a scenario, and we had like one of those open top cars with a rumble seat, and we had just thwarted this cult from doing whatever they were doing, and we're running away, and we get in the car and we're driving away and we're winning, but the cultists are shooting after us, right? They're, poof, poof, poof. And my friend, again, Mike Fitch, I did not kill him.
Okay, I was curious.
I know. It was the right thing to do, but I took the risk. And we did sanitize his hands, and they were raw from the scrubbing, but, whatever. But so he's in the back of the rumble seat, and we're driving away, and his character is going, we made it, we made it, we made it. And my friend, as the, a GM, rolls the dice, and he shakes his head, and the next thing we know is Mike's character is face down into the car seat, and it just reminded me so much of like Dirty Dozen, that very end of the scene where the three of them are in their half track, and and he goes, we made it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of cinematic gaming moments that you really love. Playing a lot of games over the years with Scott Glancy, they're all cinematic. Those are some of the funnest games.
Yeah, I can imagine. I just like listening to that guy talk about grocery shopping. He's just very,
Yeah, I went to the store. It's so true. So, that's kind of like a quick synopsis, going from D&D, morphing it a bit to, the Elric, the multiverse series, didn't quite work. Then really digging into Call of Cthulhu, and doing that whole sanity thing was fantastic and refreshing. And then fixing Call of Cthulhu, the Delta Green fixes the problems of origin, why are you doing it, money. It's like, no, you're in the know. You already know everything. You don't know everything, but you're in an organization, and you're fighting the menace, and you're funded, you have cash or weapons. So a lot of the, it gets back to the story, which I think is, overall, if you look at the whole thing, that's what's important.
Yeah, and honestly, I remember playing Call of Cthulhu now, and it just felt weird. It's like, cops aren't going to let us go in there and look at stuff. I was like, I don't know, 16, and I was like, cops aren't going to let us go in there, guys. We got to break it afterwards. Ended up getting in way more trouble. It's like, oh, man, too bad I couldn't be part of some, government agency. But that just felt kind of, hokey, and it's like, oh, man, that'd feel like X-Files Monster of the Week stuff. It's like, how do you do this without it being dumb? Thanks, Arc Dream and Pagan Publishing. And
Exactly. That makes, and that bleakness, too, is like it's like, it's like you're not going to, it's a temporary victory. It's always like a temporary victory. But, the best thing is running, like Scott Glancy one time, I'm not going to give away the whole story, but just the setup is he made us all I don't know how old we were, 17 to 21-year-old soldiers in the Middle East, which was great because we're stupid. You're not skilled. You're like this dumbass with a gun.
Yeah.
And now you're being exposed to that. That's the kind of stuff that's refreshing and cool because, again, it goes back to the story. It removes the superpower stuff, right? And you have to focus on things. Yeah, no, that's all like really fun stuff. It's good.
Did you ever play Call of Cthulhu D20?
Did I ever? I probably did, but it's like, I think it's been expunged.
It just struck me as so weird as being able to play like a level 15 dilettante. It's like, what?
You and the
You should be
dilettante.
I was going to say, have you seen this place? And I'm like, actually, it doesn't look that great right now. It's like I have art stuff all over the place. I am a dilettante. I even know how to fire a shotgun.
Yeah, we're down in this, private restaurant basement with everything.
Oh, yeah.
That's very nice.
Thank you. Yeah. It's the studio. And hey, if you want to be a part of this, come on down and contact me and we can do something and I'll feed you and give you beer.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get back to role-playing games here. Sure. So where were we at?
We were just going to go to the arcs of things that led to Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Something that did not lead, as a matter of fact, it was a dead end for me, was like Traveler. I know a lot of people really, really liked it, but it's just not the setting that I was really into. And like, of course, like, you don't have the mad computer skills to be able to crack the codes to get onto the spaceship or whatever the thing. So, not as fun. I played some other role playing game where it was a post apocalyptic world. It was set in Portland too.
Huh.
And that was kind of cool. It was like radiation, and you have to worry about crawling through sewers and stuff, and having to know like the residential sewers. They get smaller and smaller as you get away from the main trunks and stuff. So that was kind of fun.
Nice.
But that was too real. You want to have a little distance.
Yeah.
I like a little distance. Like, clearly, the end times are not upon us. Yes, they are. And we don't have to worry about horrible, Lovecraftian nasties. Oh, yes, we do. And that's all I got to say. Those are I think the primary games. I'm a big war gamer.
Yeah.
So and that started even before all the role playing stuff with Avalon Hill, and my brother had Storm Over Arnhem, which I really I still play to this day, just because fond memories and stuff. Although if you're the British, it's just about attrition. But a game that almost made me stop was this game from Avalon Hill called Outdoor Survival.
I was going to say Wilderness Survival.
Yes. Is that the name of it? Was it Outdoor Survival?
I don't know. I just remember
Survival?
that like my gaming store had like a stack of them.
Yes.
And it was like $5, and my buddy Greg Bass and we both bought one. We're like, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's the thing that like
we found more use out of the cardboard little squares and stuff. We
repurposed them. Yep.
Repurposed everything for D&D or Call of Cthulhu or Shadowrun or whatever over the years. But yeah, that.
It's funny. I think we probably got it for the same reason. It was probably like super discounted. This was somewhere in the mid 70s. I can't remember. Maybe 76, 77 time frame.
And I had copies laying around 10 years later.
This is it's a dreadful game. It just made me go, I never want to play a hex map game or with counters again. Never want to do it. But I did. Obviously, I overcame it because shortly after that, I went to see, was it 78? The Lord of the Rings animated film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I had to get my dad to drive me out. Like in Dallas, there was only one little theater that was playing it, and it was, it's kind of sketchy in a faraway place.
Yeah.
It was not well distributed. So, but on the way back, there was a game store nearby.
Nice.
And I happened to drop in there, and it was like, oh, all right. I think they've redone it. The Five Armies, Battle of the Five Armies or something like that. And that was cool for me. It was like, oh, great. And I can replay that. And I had all, the dwarves and the elves and the orcs and everything. And some of the wolves, and do all that kind of thing. That was fun.
Nice.
Yeah. What's your favorite game?
My favorite game? Geez.
I haven't played Geez.
Geez is a pretty good game. No. I love like
second edition D&D. There's like second edition D&D Planescape, and I used to just like, it's like interdimensional traveling around, and I used to run it with like just giving people nothing. It's like, you're moving around, you'll find stuff. It's not about how powerful you are. It's about what you do and how powerful you become. And I used to love that. And I've got such a soft spot in my heart for Call of Cthulhu that, Call of Cthulhu is probably my favorite RPG, or just the BRP system, just like the basic BRP system, and using that for like, I'm going to do some post-apocalyptic role-playing game. I'm going to do some zombie stuff. I just really liked how like the BRP system was just like really kind of universal, like a Swiss Army knife of role-playing games. And there was other systems out there like GURPS and stuff, but I'll be honest,
GURPS,
I never had fun playing GURPS. I
Yeah,
didn't play it
well,
enough,
it's
and I
generic.
didn't know the rules, and it's like, I don't get it.
It was supposed to be the universal, one game system to rule them all.
Yeah, but they had so many source books and be like, oh, hey, yeah, we play monsters and we can do all this monstery stuff. And I'm like, so we're playing Nightbreed, the RPG. Let's just watch Nightbreed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's again another reason why I liked Dungeon Crawl Classics. I mean, their philosophy is, here's the book. It's got everything.
Yeah.
You can play the game. You don't have to buy a separate book for clerics and a separate book for this and a separate book for monsters. It's no, here you go. There it is. So that's kind of refreshing. A very, like one big thick book and not that expensive. So give it a try for those people who want to play a D&D like thing that is back to basics, back to the good. Back when it was fun.
Yeah, no. I remember there was a period of time when it's like all my friends started being like, well, we're just going to take any money we get and it's all going into D&D books. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Do you need this encyclopedia set about magic spells? You don't play mages. You don't need the Bard's books. You don't need this. This isn't Pokemon. You don't have to catch them all. Pokemon didn't exist at that time, but... Right. Oh man, drove me crazy. It was like, oh, the best nerd's the one who's got the biggest stack of books.
That's right. That's true.
I know it's true. I'm not a good nerd in that way.
I know. I'm very disappointed in you, Danno. I'm telling you, it's not a good thing. But it's kind of fun looking back at the arc and how things led. From again going back into doing games like Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green, and still do those. Still have fun.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I'm looking forward to gaming with Scott again at the Lovecraft Film Festival.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that's coming up soon. That's like
Very
in
soon.
October.
Yeah, I've got beer brewing for it soon. I'm gonna make up another another batch of the Schwarz beer.
Wow, wunderbar.
Oh yeah,
that's very good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, except you're out.
We're out. So I'm probably gonna do that tomorrow.
Yeah, so I feel a little cheated here, just a little bit. Yeah, what other people don't know, as well as his other, it was a pale ale that you made.
It's just kind of a ale, just saying a classic ale.
Yeah, there's no CO2, so there's no way to deliver the nectar, and so yes.
Unless we want to like scoop it out with our hands and drink it flat. But.
Yeah. That reminds me of a time we had to scoop out the brains and drink it. Okay. So that's it.
Yeah.
I think I again recommend Dungeon Crawl Classics. I almost part of me wants to pull out the Stormbringer again just to see, but I think that those times have passed. I think it's too late for that.
Yeah, there was
and I was going to say, like, I don't know if you. It's kind of funny. I don't know why I have a soft spot for this, but like Arkham Horror, the card game. It does a pretty good job of it's kind of got safety rails on playing the game.
Sure.
But it allows to develop a story that's interesting. You can play it solo, which is another reason I play that. And I did a Lovecraft Film Festival scenario last year as an expansion for that game.
Oh, cool.
And I do have a soft spot for that compared to a lot of the other Fantasy Flight games. I haven't really tried. What edition are they on? Like for Arkham or the board game.
Oh, second, third.
No, it's like
something
third,
that.
right? Because it's easily third. I mean, I had the first edition.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I did. That was the fun. That was the bomb. When that game came out, we played the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And we started expanding the rules and to do our own things. Like if you're in another dimension, what you can do. But that was a fun, not overly complicated game. And then I felt like they kept adding, Fantasy Flight, that's what they classically do, is they add more chrome, more chrome, until it looks like, I don't know, a Cylon, with so much chrome walking at you. But I heard the third edition, I guess it's third edition, correct me if I'm wrong, but that it's improved some of the stuff. And
Nice.
But it's app assisted too, I believe. And
Okay,
so, I'm kind of torn. It's kind of nice and not nice having like these app edition games. I'm kind of torn between them. Some of it's like from Mansions of Madness. I don't know if you ever played Mansions of Madness.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mansions of Madness with the app and getting rid of the GM basically and having that be just run by the thing, I think is an improvement.
Okay.
It was fun. It was like really good at like getting back to trying to do the story, and it's great because it's got an external system that people write stories for. Valkyrie.
Oh, cool.
It's like a free software app that you can download that has basically all these additional stories that work in that Mansions of Madness universe. But these are all like, for those who don't have time to have an actual GM who crafts a story that can lead you through the story, because it's all about the story.
Yeah.
It's a good substitute.
Nice. And what's that called?
The Mansions of Madness.
Mansions of Madness
is the
is
second edition.
Okay, the second edition.
Yeah, and because the first edition had the game master, where you had one person who's trying to, but it was a lot of bookkeeping and stuff that wasn't fun. So like the app keeps track of it, which makes it more focus on the fun. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's not a the story's shallower in some ways, but it depends. And I definitely, for those people out there listening who do play that, check out Valkyrie, which is the standalone app that allows you to plug into a whole universe of other stories.
That's so cool. That
scenarios.
is so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Simplistic games that I've played recently is I bought my girlfriend's son.
That's called slavery. You shouldn't buy. Really, Danno, that's just wrong.
I bought my girlfriend's son the Dungeons, like the Dungeons and Dragons board game. He's 8, or he just turned 8, and I was like, maybe I'll get him into this nerd stuff. I mean, get him away from that Power Rangers garbage.
Is it working?
Oh yeah, no. He's like, hey, can I get a flaming sword? Can I look through the deck so I get the flaming sword? No, you can't look through the deck so you get the flaming sword. Now I have to go through and like shuffle up the deck, just make sure that he doesn't stack it.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of funny is what the resurgence. I guess everything comes around every 20 years or something, but the resurgence of D&D is amazing, especially in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like everyone has their game groups now,
Yeah.
and it's like, you guys aren't nerds. What? Now it's like it's the cool thing to do. All the cool kids are doing it.
I don't know if you've ever checked out Brian Posehn's Nerd Poker or Dan Harmon's Harmontown. Those are not the cool kids playing D&D.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, Harmon. Have you seen the television show Harmon's Quest?
Oh, I saw the first season of it, but I haven't had whatever subscription service you need to get it, and I haven't felt like stealing it yet. So
It's okay. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And it's Harmon kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was fun. I've been listening to old episodes of Harmontown, so I can listen to like the stuff that they did before that, and with characters like Sharpie Butts a lot.
Yes.
Dumb stuff like that.
All of his shows are very much therapy in public.
Yes. Oh yeah. No, and you were talking about Elric earlier, and I was like, that just something about that. The multiverse character who has like the optimistic side. Sounds kind of like Rick and Morty. I've heard Dan Harmon talk about those. Yeah, I think I know where he got that, but no.
Oh no, actually, I think Rick is way cooler in some ways than Elric is. See, them are fighting words. I
Yeah,
know.
hey, I don't know. I couldn't say.
Smackdown. Here we go.
I don't know. It just seems like a cartoon version of Jim from Taxi to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Except he'd have to be an albino. But, I guess I see what you're saying. The other one, yes. Sorry. Fine. That's Rick. I get it. But, which is a great show, by the way. I highly recommend it.
I love Taxi.
Yep. Man.
Sorry.
I like all the shows.
I like all the shows, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so, that reminds me very little of the time. I have one more story, gaming thing, which was, I had this, I'll say friend, quote unquote. He was one of the, part of our gaming group, but he cheated a lot. So we always called him out. We'd always but he did it on purpose. He had this need to win. He had this psychological problem where he needed to win. And yes, I'm ashamed to admit it that I did play Risk at times, but it's okay, fine, we'll play Risk. Not my first choice at all, because it's super simplistic. And so anyway, I knew what he wanted to do. His goal was to take over every territory on the map, everything. It was his goal.
Yeah,
he was going to do it. So he started winning and doing it, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm conceding. And he goes, no, you got to keep playing. I go, well, the only way we're going to keep playing, and he didn't know about Lovecraft and Cthulhu this time, is that I play. I have New England right now. I have North America. We're playing Cthulhu rules, Lovecraft rules, and you got to agree that we're going to play this. Oh, well, fine, whatever. He didn't know what they were. So we're all right. I said, okay, you agreed to him. Great. So as he played, finally he comes to Massachusetts, takes over, and and he's a few territories away from conquering everything. It's inevitable. But part of the rules was all right, when you attack my territories, you can only put one army against my army. So I was trying to make it equal odds, and so he was losing. He was getting pissed off because he was not winning all the time. But finally, it was just a matter of attrition, right? So it was down to the last couple of territories, Massachusetts being one of them. So he invades that territory, and I said, okay, Cthulhu rules, and I flipped the board.
Cthulhu rules!
Yes, exactly, because defying him, the satisfaction of getting every last territory was totally worth it. And with that,
man.
I think I will bid you adieu.
Oh, thank you so much, Andrew, for coming in and talking to us about role-playing games and Lovecraftiana in general. If you get the chance, is there anything you want to plug right now?
All right. I think I got 24 hours left on the Last Incantation Kickstarter. Last Incantation. It is I said H.P. Lovecraft. It's a Clark Ashton Smith short story adaptation, and it's the third ever done. So
cool.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. Yeah, I figured get you on the show at least one more time before the Kickstarter's over, and
there we did it.
And yeah, hey, there we go. High five.
All right.
And that wasn't just the fake audio high five when someone claps their own hands. No. Yeah. We didn't do Foley work. We actually high fived.
Does he do anything?
The
French.